food is medicine. I feel like it's just North America that really does it. So whether it's postpartum soups and Chinese medicine, anti-inflammatory herbs in the Caribbean households, or nutrient-dense stews in West African traditions, these practices are wisdoms that have been passed down through generations, and they deserve a place in modern nutrition conversations.
Welcome to another insightful episode of Wednesday Wellness Debrief, your journey to wellness and maternal health. Today, we have the immense privilege of sitting down with a truly remarkable individual who is revolutionizing the landscape of maternal health and family wellness. Tenisha is a certified holistic nutritionist and founder of Tenisha Hill Wellness. She specializes in pregnancy and postpartum nutrition, helping women overcome common symptoms, support a healthy pregnancy, and feel confident in how they're nourishing themselves and their baby. Tenisha, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so much.
you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Awesome. Yes. And for reference, I'm here in the United States and you're located in Canada,
Yes,
correct?
I
Awesome.
am. Yeah, I'm
Awesome.
in
So the
Canada.
measurements may be a little bit different, but we gonna get there. So we're gonna start with our first question. So, could you tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming a certified holistic nutritionist and a pregnancy and postpartum nutrition expert?
Absolutely. So, my journey started from a very personal place. Even as a trained nutritionist, I found pregnancy nutrition incredibly confusing. There's just so much conflicting advice, food fear, and pressure around body image. And I remember thinking to myself that if I feel this way, I can only imagine what other women are experiencing or how they feel during pregnancy. So at the time, I was actually planning to specialize in gut health, but the more I experienced and research, the more I realized how deeply underserved this space was, especially for women navigating complications, trauma, cultural stigma, or simply just trying to do the right thing and feeling overwhelmed. So there's so much that isn't discussed, like how common it is to feel anxious about food in the first trimester, how misunderstood weight gain is, or how little support there is for postpartum healing. So I shifted my focus and deepened my training in perinatal nutrition, with a commitment to trauma informed, weight inclusive, and cultural sensitive care. So now I support women with practical real life strategies that help them feel empowered, not judged, through every stage of pregnancy and postpartum.
Oh my goodness, that sounds amazing.
Mhm.
I know whoever you work with, they're so excited to probably be felt seen by you. And based on and before the internet cut out, you talking about how you transitioned from your career in HR and you kind of went back for to get more education, nutrition. How did you transition from, again, I am a former corporate girly who worked in the big 9 to 5, and you're like, no, I'm transitioning to the wellness space.
Yeah. So you know what? I still do work corporate and I am building my nutrition business. It's getting really busy now anyways, but that's a whole different story. And I'm sure you can relate to that, building a business while also working corporate full time. But I was struggling with my own health issues. And after working with a naturopath, I was reignited with that fire that I totally need to go back to school and become a nutritionist. And as I mentioned before, because I was struggling with gut health, I really thought I was going to specialize in that area, but I decided to just work in this space because, again, there's just women in this space need so much love, so much support. I think also too having representation as a Black woman in this space is also really important. I've worked with a number of Black women who said that they feel comfortable, they feel safe being able to speak with me, to work with me, and feel like they're being heard, seen, and held during this transition. So that also makes me feel really good and proud that I'm also able to fill that gap. That's really, really important. So, yeah.
Mm. I think a lot of times in healthcare and wellness spaces, there's a cultural wellness aspect that a lot of people don't realize. And a
Mhm.
lot of times we like to see ourselves and our caregivers because
Yeah,
we feel like again, like you said, I feel seen. If I tell you something, I don't have to overly explain it to you,
exactly.
especially in a moment like pregnancy. I'm like, I don't feel like I have to over explain who I am, why I'm feeling this way. And I like that you did that. I like that you're like, you know what? There's a niche, I'm gonna fill it.
Exactly.
So, and you discussed postpartum. The postpartum period is often overlooked nutritionally. What are some essential nutritional considerations for new parents? And from your perspective, how do you support them through that demanding time? Because that's a year is, as I'm learning, it's very much on the go, there's no sleep. How, from your perspective, how does that work?
You totally hit the nail on the head with that one. No sleep, that part. But postpartum is one of the most nutritionally demanding phases, and I think it's often overlooked physically, emotionally, and mentally. But it's often treated like an afterthought. Women are focused on the nursery, the best car seat, the stroller, all of those things, but they spend so little time thinking about how they need to be supported during the postpartum period. Your nutrient stores postpartum are depleted after birth. Your energy needs are high, especially if you're breastfeeding. And parents are, like you mentioned, running on little sleep. So when I work with my clients, I focus on rebuilding with key nutrients like minerals, iron, protein, vitamin C, zinc, B12, choline, omega 3s, and that's just naming a few. So you can see how much nutrients are needed postpartum to support mood, energy, tissue repair, and milk production. So I also emphasize warming, blood building foods, and easy to digest meals that support healing, especially in the early days postpartum when your body is really focusing on healing and um, bringing your milk in. It's not really focused on digestion, it's focused on all of those other things. So having those warming blood building foods are really really important. And then beyond food, I provide realistic strategies. So like in pregnancy, we're prepping freezer meals ahead of time, we're creating snack packs, and I'm giving my clients permission to not cook everything from scratch. So looking at ways that they can incorporate shortcuts, whether that's going to the grocery store, buying pre-cut veggies and pre-cut fruit, or leaning on food meal delivery services like a HelloFresh or like a Factor. Just knowing that eating in postpartum is hard, but nutrition is a non-negotiable, and just finding ways that we can make it accessible in the event that you never had the opportunity to do that during pregnancy. Because again, I know we emphasize the village, but in this day and age, a lot of people are moving across the world for their partners, and they may not have a village or a family to be able to support them with like making meals. So finding alternative ways that they can still feel supported, and making sure that they're rebuilding their nutrient store so that they can feel good and support recovery. And then also giving yourself flexibility, grace, and not pressure on or perfection.
Mm. I think as I can speak for myself as Black women, we put ourselves on a very high pedestal. So I can imagine you have clients coming to you who are trying to be how they were originally before the baby, and how they
Mhm.
come to you having those concerns of, well, I'm trying to do A, B, and C, and my husband tried to help, but I got mad at him, or my partner tried to
Yeah.
help, but I got mad at him. And you're like, no, you need to let the people help.
You know what? One of the best pieces of advice I got from an old coworker when I was getting ready to go on maternity leave was done is better than perfect. She said,
Mm,
your husband is not going to put the onesies in the drawer that they're dedicated to. He's not going to put the washcloths. It might be a little, scavenger hunt when you're looking for the outfit for the baby, but the laundry's done and it's put away. It's not worth the fight, and done is better than perfect. You can't do it all. You need to conserve your energy, focus on recovery, focus on healing. So just giving yourself that grace and that permission that you can take a step back. You don't have to do it all, and leaning on the people around you to support you and making sure things are getting done around the house.
mm. I like that. Sometimes you have to kind of keep reminding yourself of that and everything. And
Yeah.
speaking of which, into our thought provoking questions, and what uh, parents and responsibilities, and what ways do societal and cultural expectations around body image and weight impact the nutritional choices and mental well being of individuals during the reproductive journey?
Yeah, this is such a good question. So the pressure to bounce back or not gain too much weight during pregnancy can be really harmful. It often leads people to ignore hunger cues, restrict food, or obsess over the scale when their bodies are literally building a human from scratch, like you're building organs or recovering from birth. So the pressure, especially, is intense for women who already exist in a bit larger bodies or are part of communities that face like that compounded stigma. So when food becomes about control instead of nourishment, it can trigger anxiety, disordered eating, and shame, you know? So
Mm,
in my practice, I like to help clients shift the focus away from weight and toward healing, energy, and how they feel. Because when people start tuning into their bodies with curiosity instead of judgment, everything changes and nutrition becomes very empowering, especially during this phase of like, going from fertility to postpartum. It's just nutrition should be more empowering and not restricting, and kind of just having to tune out that noise that we often hear like on social media about bouncing back or
mm,
not gaining too much weight. Like some their weight gain in pregnancy is expected. We just need to make sure we're not overdoing it. And this is again like where I educate my clients to share how nutrition is important and how we can work together to find the right food so that they're gaining a healthy amount of weight, without like overdoing it, since that's a concern. And also too, not gaining enough weight is also a concern. So surprisingly enough, so just always just keeping them informed that weight gain is expected and it's normal. We just have to make sure it's reasonable. So
mm. I didn't think of the not gaining enough weight situation, but probably you've probably seen it. I'm starting to work with prenatal and postnatal clients, and
mhm.
even communicating with them of like, did you hydrate today before we start this workout? Did you eat enough today? Do you have a snack for afterwards? And
Yeah.
I think for them, I think it's kind of like the, oh yeah, I was just like, yeah, even you still have to have that, you're feeding yourself or you're feeding the baby. You have to keep that momentum going.
Yeah, I actually just recently had a conversation with someone on a discovery call who was on a weight loss journey. Before finding out she was pregnant, it was unplanned, unexpected. And, even just hearing her speak, she was so concerned about gaining weight, but she also wasn't eating enough. And then she was wondering also why she's constantly feeling nauseous, why she's having these cravings for salt, why she feels so low energy, but she's like forcing herself to go, go, go. And I had to remind her that, you know, weight loss and pregnancy are very different mindsets. And I know that you may have been in a calorie deficit when you were on your weight loss journey, but right now, when we're in pregnancy, we need to change our mindset that we're nourishing both you and baby. Food is going to help manage your symptoms. Make sure that baby's getting enough what they need to support their growth and their development so that you both can feel healthy and feel good. So again, it is definitely a major mindset shift. And I always try to gently remind them, like, you know, not to kind of obsessed about like other things that can cause unnecessary like anxiety and overwhelm. And again, it is valid concerns, if you're going from a weight loss journey to being pregnant, but just encouraging them, validating them, and just making sure they're good.
No, I think that's the thing. This is already a stressful time for the pregnant person and their partner, because in their partner, depending on their diet and everything, it impacts everything.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I think that's really important. For the next question, does food as medicine play across different cultures in supporting reproductive health? And how do you incorporate this philosophy in your practice?
So many cultures already understand food as medicine. I feel like it's just North America that really does it. So whether it's postpartum soups in Chinese medicine, anti-inflammatory herbs in the Caribbean households, or nutrient-dense stews in West African traditions, these practices are wisdoms that have been passed down through generations, and they deserve a place in modern nutrition conversations. And I see them coming up more and more, but not as often, but they are slowly starting to make more rise and enter the chat, especially when it comes to postpartum healing and recovery. So, in my work, I really love to honor these traditions. I ask clients about their cultural foods and find and incorporating them intentionally. It's often not about the food you're eating, it's just how you're building your plate. You can still enjoy your cultural foods intentionally, and just building a plate that is more blood sugar balancing, so you don't have that, spike and crash, or maybe looking at the oils we're using and kind of like changing that around, that they're more healthful. So I always tell clients that you don't need kale or quinoa to be nourished. You can thrive on kalaloo, dal, injera, pho. So reclaiming cultural foods can be incredibly healing, especially when you've been dismissed or stigmatized.
Mm. And I think that was on social media. That's been a thing, like a back and forth. I'm not sure if you've seen that, where people debate of is cultural foods quote unquote healthy enough, or in so many senses, or like
Mhm.
sodium wise. And I think there's been a back and forth about, again, you kind of said that like the North America's kind of painted it where it's kind of like you just need to eat the greens and that's it.
Yeah,
And
rice, broccoli, and chicken. Eh.
yeah. I, I was like, I like a little bit of plantains. I like a little bit of, I like some things. I like it. But I think hearing that helps people kind of feel more comfortable in their food choices, because again, you're so scared that you're gonna mess up, you're not just yourself but the baby, and then everyone kind of points the finger at the pregnant person like they messed up type of
Yeah,
thing.
no, so true, so true. And again, I am a big proponent to eating your cultural foods. The other day, I posted my rice and peas, curry goat, and coleslaw on my stories, and I said, I don't know who needs to hear this, but your cultural food will always have a place in your diet. And I got so much comments on that. They're like, "Oh my gosh, like really? I thought this was so fattening, or this and that." I'm like, "No, no, no, it deserves a place in your diet." So, yeah.
Mm. I'm gonna keep that in mind moving forward. I was just like, I'm gonna keep my cultural foods
Great. Yeah.
So, in kind of going into the next question, into our deep questions, what systematic barriers or biases, from your perspective, exist within healthcare to prevent culturally sensitive nutritional care from being widely accessible, especially for marginalized groups?
So I would say one major issue is the lack of representation. So most nutrition research and guidelines are based on Western Eurocentric models that ignore diversity of food, bodies, and lived experiences. And many providers aren't trained to understand or respect cultural foods, leading to advice that feels irrelevant or shaming or worse. And I guess going back to your point where there is a debate online on whether cultural foods do fit into your diet, that's why these conversations I think are coming up, So access is another huge barrier. So marginalized communities often face food insecurities or lack of insurance coverage for nutrition counseling, and sometimes there's language barriers. And even when care is available, it's not always safe or affirming. So that's why like I advocate for, centering nutrition around cultural practices, making sure that they're incorporated, validating lived experiences, and pushing for system changes in how we educate and train practitioners, So it's not just about the food guide or whatever. We're like really just taking into consideration those ethnic backgrounds and being able to incorporate it. And there's so much wisdom in it, and um, it very nutrient dense. There's just so much. So yeah.
Yeah, I think, and in my former corporate 9 to 5, working in a big healthcare system, I think they tried, as I was leaving out the door, to try and incorporate it. But sometimes you can have, like you said, the documents, but if the people aren't doing it,
Yeah. You
it, it
And
just
also
doesn't work.
to make those changes, you need the representation itself, right? You can't only have a specific demographic trying to incorporate cultural stuff when they actually don't have the lived experiences, they don't have the knowledge. So that's why it's also important to look at, the network and being able to reach out to colored or marginalized groups of people, and getting their wisdom and getting them on the boards, and getting, in their heads of how they can actually properly incorporate those things,
Yeah,
those changes, so that they can be impactful.
Yeah. And again, like I say, like you can put something on a piece of paper, but if you don't know how to do it and enact it, it's kind of like that's a nice sheet of paper right there.
Exactly. Literally, yeah, exactly.
Like lovely words was beautiful gowns, great gowns. Very,
Exactly.
and which leads us into how can, and you kind of said it, how can healthcare institutes better integrate cultural wellness into prenatal and postpartum programs to offer more comprehensive and inclusive care?
Yeah, that's like such a good question. I mean, first we can also have to expand our definition of wellness. So cultural wellness includes food, yes, but also community, storytelling, rituals, and rest. So, like institutions can start again, like as I mentioned before, partnering with competent partners or providers, hiring doulas and nutritionists from the community they serve, and incorporating traditional foods and practices into their programming. We also need to stop using one size fit all recommendations. Like a prenatal class that doesn't reflect diverse experiences won't meet the needs of all parents. And inclusive care means listening, it means learning, it means co creating solutions with the community you serve, not just prescribing from the top down and expecting changes to just be there or happen, you know?
Oh no, when I first started in my career, I worked very heavily with the pregnant and postpartum population,
Yeah.
and that's something I noted. Whereas like everything was very just like fit in a box, and I was like, I understand for consistency and to kind of get people in and out, that makes sense. But this person has a different experience. This person's experiencing something different. This person may not be experiencing homelessness. This person may be experiencing a particular domestic violence situation. The experience or the cookie cutter is not going to work for both of them.
Exactly.
Uh, it's it's hard.
Exactly. And also too, we're in a real like a very interesting climate right now. The cost of food is so expensive. It's gone up astronomically, you know. There's just so much things that need to really be taken into consideration. So,
Yeah, I just went to the we have a Publix, we call it Publix down here, and just literally was like, I was so happy because I was like, oh, good, buy one get one free is everywhere because I was mentally counting. I'm just like, how much is this going to cost? And especially
yeah.
if you're going to the fresh fruit side because we're trying to eat better, it's
Yeah.
really difficult. And because you're just like, am I willing to pay the extra $2 3 for the organic or do? It's
Yeah. No, it's true. People are really faced right now with these decisions, right? So, um, yeah, and again, sometimes too, I think it's often overlooked that cultural foods too are sometimes a little bit more affordable. Like, you know, when you're thinking about boiling banana or yam or all of that stuff, it's sometimes it literally can be more affordable, but people have written it off as not healthy or this, but it's just like, yeah, so
I
interesting.
I will state, I because we have an Asian market like 20 minutes down the street, and a lot of times like it's cheap, like, kind of like it's cheaper to shop at the Asian market and pick up stuff there than it is like a
Yeah.
Publix or a Winn-Dixie over here. I'm just like, oh, okay. I get the culture. I get cultural. I get different cultural stuff there. Within the same price range. So yeah, you're not wrong. I think
Yeah.
your service encourages like, no, you can still have the cultural things in moderation, do the things, but still enjoy yourself
Yeah, exactly. Totally.
and treat yourself. Now to our fun part, our controversial questions. The
Okay.
first one, we kind of briefly talked about it. How do you challenge existing biases and stereotypes within the healthcare system regarding the nutritional practices and cultural norms of specific ethnic or racial groups during the reproductive journey?
This is such a good question. And I feel calling it out gently but clearly. So when I hear someone say that food is too greasy or they don't eat healthy in that culture, I ask, why do you believe that? And who created that definition of healthy for you? You know, I also use education as a tool. I bring up nutrient density of food. So I'm Jamaican and I love oxtail, which is rich in iron, zinc, collagen, and B12. There's key for postpartum healing and energy. Plantain, you mentioned plantain earlier. They're a great source of potassium, fiber, vitamin C, and complex carbohydrates that you can add to your plate to support your blood sugar and your energy levels. And then I know injera that's made from teff. It's naturally gluten free and packed with iron, magnesium, and resistant starch that support gut health. So you have to just really be willing to just challenge these biases so we can make room for people to reconnect with their roots and feel proud of their choices, not ashamed.
Mm. I love that, just reaffirming. Because again, I think, and I'm I, I am Black American, but my grandmom's side they're Bahamian, and my dad's side they're Puerto Rican and Cuban. So like there's a mix. But when you come again to the North America, those things are kind of looked down upon. Of just like,
Exactly.
do you really
Exactly.
want this? Do you really should you really be eating this? And you're like, but I love it. Even like when I go over, like we eat conch and all this other stuff, and it's just it makes you feel home and it makes you feel whole. And especially as I'm learning through the pregnancy journey, you need something that's going to kind of bring you back and center
Exactly.
you into who you are as a person and culturally who you are as a person as well.
Exactly. Exactly. It's so true. And so funny enough, oxtail, for example, used to be like 5.99 a pound. Now it's 10.99 a pound because so many people are into making bone broth and they know that the oxtail is very gelatinous and it will rich in collagen and give you that gel consistency when the bone broth cools. So it's funny too now that oxtail is actually being shopped by people who wouldn't, it's not a part of their culture, but now that they're seeing how it's being used in traditional healing recipes, they're now sourcing it and raising the price.
Look, I know that hurts when you go to the store and you get it measured. You're like,
It's like, are you sure?
no, do you not want it? No, I want it. I just want to you make sure that it's the right price.
Exactly, exactly. So it's a blessing and a curse that a lot of some cultural meats are now making their way mainstream because it is driving up the price. But at least you know that people are now also becoming a little bit more open minded to those type of meats, whereas before they were looked down upon, being like, oh, that's not good quality
Lesser.
meat. But now they're
Yeah.
like, give it to me. So.
Like, oh, now you find use for it. Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Making me pay the price.
Exactly. Now we have made it to our last question, and it is a controversial one, but I'm excited
Mhm,
to hear your take on it.
mhm,
So, the concept of clean eating or organic only can sometimes be culturally and socioeconomically exclusive.
mhm.
From your perspective in your practice, how do you ensure your nutritional advice is accessible and equitable for all, regardless of their cultural background or financial means?
Like, this is a really, really important question. So, the idea of clean eating often comes with a lot of privilege. It assumes access to time, money, and very specific foods. And then with social media, the pressure has only amplified because you'll see wellness influencers promoting expensive supplements or superfoods or organic only everything as if that's the only way to be healthy. So, while these things are helpful, for some, they're not like the gold standard for good nutrition. You can eat well and feel nourished without shopping at health food stores or spending a fortune. And I've been on a journey myself to getting back to basics and not being heavily reliant on supplements or very expensive supplements. I mean, I know I do share supplements on my, Instagram that I find are really valuable, but they're not necessarily needed for everyone. So in my practice, I'm really intentional about meeting my clients where they are. So we talk about frozen options, we talked about canned options, we talk about budget friendly swaps, shopping sales, eating seasonal, and making the most of cultural staples. So like I'm a big proponent again as sticking with the basics. So as much as I would say go for grass fed beef, pasture raised eggs, organic chicken, because we know they're going to have, better nutritional profile because of the way that they're raised and the food that they're fed. I also know that even with conventional meat, if the grass fed and pasture raised is not in your budget, is still going to be rich in the protein, the iron, and the B vitamins that you need for a healthy pregnancy and to support your postpartum recovery. So I know accessibility isn't always optional, but accessibility isn't optional, it's the foundation of ethical care. So my goal is to help people feel empowered with the tools they do have instead of feeling less than for what they don't, because it's so easy to get caught up in comparing, like, oh my gosh, I don't have that brand whatever, that means I'm not
Mhm.
going to be able to, or I can't afford like this membership, I can't like afford it. And I think that's sometimes too where social media can kind of distort your mind about what health, how health is perceived or what health is. And again, like just getting back to the basics, you can still feel really nourished and healthy and empowered, so yeah.
Mm. I love that. I do have a follow-up to that because
Yeah,
there's
of course.
something as
Mm.
I'm preparing to start trying this later this year with my husband, and I'm in some of the mommy groups. And so there's been like a little bit of a back and forth of vitamins do not overtake your nutrition, that you need to have a good nutritional background. And so I'm like, well, the vitamins take care of that. So from your perspective, the shake of your head, no. So from your perspective, your professional perspective, they need nutrition and the vitamins go hand in hand. One doesn't kind of go over the other type of thing.
So I'm always going to say food first. We're going to focus on having as much healthy foods as possible, like nutrient dense meals. Vitamins act as like an insurance policy. It fills in the gaps for what you don't get in your diet, right? So they do work hand in hand, but it's going to be really important that what you're eating day to day throughout the day is going to be more important than just taking supplements. Your prenatal is not going to cover the basis of the nutrient needs that you need for pregnancy or in postpartum. It's like what you're putting on your plate for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks is what's going to be really move the needle in your overall health.
Well, thank you for clearing that up because that was the
You're
debate that
welcome.
I saw. Like that was one of the first debates I saw. I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, and I think again, and you probably have the debate of like, well, what's the best prenatal that's gonna like basically a magic pill that fixes everything? And you kind of like your nutrition needs to be there. The pills is not gonna fix everything. It's just gonna
Yeah.
fix everything.
Yeah, and you know what though? So like when it comes to supplements too, it's also really important that you are sourcing high quality supplements when you do need them. The supplement industry isn't that regulated. So there are supplements that have synthetic forms of the vitamin. So you're not actually going to be getting what you need from the vitamin. So you want to also make sure that you are sourcing high quality supplements that are actually going to help fill in those nutrient gaps. So if you want to have, I can share a recommendation if you would
Yes,
like.
yes. Please share a recommendation.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's two brands that I really, really like, and they are based in the States. There's Fullwell, there's also Needed, and there's also Seeking Health. They're all really high quality vitamins. They have the vitamins in their methylated forms. They don't contain calcium and iron, which are two nutrients that compete for each other. So I've taking iron as a standalone vitamin if required based on your lab work is important. You don't want that in a prenatal. They're third party tested. They meet the RDA because there is a stat where it says 95% of women enter pregnancy with at least one nutrient deficiency. So they make sure that they designed their prenatal to get at least the RDA, which is the recommend daily allowance in their prenatals to ensure that women are getting what they need. So yeah, so those are some prenatals that I really like. And again, they're also not going to be a one size fit all, but there's like a starting place, and based on your lab work, how you eat, and any other things over that umbrella, they may be a good fit for you or not.
Mm.
Mhm.
Well, thank you for those recommendations. I'm going to keep that in mind. And I bet the listeners will also keep that in mind as well. And that brings us to an end of another truly enriching conversation here on Wednesday Wellness to Breathe. My heartfelt thank you to Tanisha. Round of applause for
Thank you
Tanisha.
so much for having me
Of
here. This is so much
course.
fun.
Oh my goodness. And thank you for sharing your incredible wisdom, your compassionate insight, and your profound dedication to holistic maternal health and cultural wellness.
Oh,
Now, where I'm going to put it in the description, where can the people find you if they want to use your services or follow you on social media for tips, where can the people find you?
Okay, so I don't have a website right now. It's under construction, but you can find me at Tenisha Wellness on Instagram. If you have a question about fertility, pregnancy, postpartum, want to learn how you could work with me, my email is hello@tenishahillwellness.com. And yeah, that's where you can find me.
There you go. Please take a moment to like this episode, subscribe to Wednesday Wellness Debrief if you haven't already, and we would absolutely love to hear your thoughts and takeaways in the comments or reviews. Your engagement helps us create even more valuable content for you. Join us next time on Wednesday Wellness Debrief as we continue to explore the 9 pillars of wellness and empower you to live your most vibrant life. Until then, be well and nurture your amazing self.